is Jessica. I'm going to be reading a chapter to you from the book Wheat Belly by Dr. William Davis. Flip through your parents' or grandparents' family albums, and you're likely to be struck by how thin everyone looks. The women probably wore size 4 dresses, and the men sported 32-inch waists. Overweight was something measured only by a few pounds. Obesity rare. Overweight children? Almost never. Any 42-inch waists? Not here. 200-pound teenagers? Certainly not. Why were the June cleavers of the 50s and 60s, the stay-at-home housewives, as well as other people of that era, so much skinnier than the modern people we see at the beach, mall, or in our own mirrors? While women of that era typically weighed in at 110 or 115 pounds, men at 150 or 165 pounds today, we carry 50, 75, even 200 pounds more. The women of that world didn't exercise much at all. It was considered unseemly, after all, like having impure thoughts at church. How many times did you see your mom put on her jogging shoes to go out for a 3-mile run? Exercise for my mother was vacuuming the stairs. Nowadays, I go outdoors on any nice day and see dozens of women jogging, riding their bicycles, power walking, things we'd virtually never see 40 or 50 years ago, and yet we're getting fatter and fatter every year. My wife is a triathlete and triathlon instructor, so I observe a few of those extreme exercise events every year. Triathletes train intensively for months to years before a race to complete a 1 to 2.5 mile open water swim, a 56 to 112 mile bike ride, and finish with a 13 to 26 mile run. Just completing a race is a feat in itself. Since the event requires up to several thousand calories and spectacular endurance, the majority of triathletes adhere to fairly healthy eating habits. Then why are a third of these dedicated men and women athletes overweight? I give them even greater credit for having to cart around the extra 30, 40, or 50 pounds. But given their extreme level of sustained activity and demanding training schedule, how can they still be overweight? If we follow conventional logic, overweight triathletes need to exercise more or eat less to lose weight. I believe that is a downright ridiculous notion. I'm going to argue that the problem with the diet and health of most Americans is not fat, not sugar, not the rise of the internet and the demise of the agrarian lifestyle. It's wheat, or what we are being sold that is called wheat. You will see that what we are eating, cleverly disguised as a bran muffin or onion ciabatta, is not really wheat at all, but the transformed product of genetic research conducted during the latter half of the 20th century. Modern wheat is no more real wheat than a chimpanzee is an approximation of a human. While our hairy primate relatives share 99% of all genes found in humans with longer arms, full body hair, and lesser capacity to win the jackpot at Jeopardy, I trust you can readily tell the difference that 1% makes. Compared to its ancestor of only 40 years ago, modern wheat is even that close. I believe that the increased consumption of grains, or more accurately, the increased consumption of this genetically altered thing called modern wheat, explains the contrast between slender, sedentary people of the 50s and overweight 21st century people, triathletes included. I recognize that declaring wheat a malicious food is like declaring that Ronald Reagan was a communist. It may seem absurd, even unpatriotic, to demote an iconic dietary staple to the status of public health hazard. But I will make the case that the world's most popular grain is also the world's most destructive dietary ingredient. Documented peculiar effects of wheat on humans includes appetite stimulation, exposure to brain-active exorphins, the counterpart of internally derived endorphins, exaggerated blood sugar surges that trigger cycles of satiety, alternating with heightened appetite, the process of glycation that underlies disease and aging, inflammatory and pH effects that erode cartilage and damage bone, and activation of disordered immune responses. A complex range of diseases results from consumption of wheat, from celiac disease, the devastating intestinal disease that develops from exposure to wheat gluten, to an assortment of neurological disorders, diabetes, heart disease, arthritis, curious rashes, and the paralyzing delusions of schizophrenia. If this thing called wheat is such a problem, then removing it should yield outsized and unexpected benefits. Indeed, that is the case. As a cardiologist who sees and treats thousands of patients at risk for heart disease, diabetes, and the myriad destructive effects of obesity, I have personally observed protuberant, flop over the fat, belly fat vanish when patients eliminated wheat from their diets, which typical weight loss totaling 20, 30, or 50 pounds just within the first few months. Rapid and effortless weight loss is usually followed by health benefits that continue to amaze even today after having witnessed this phenomenon thousands of times.